What is the greatest SummerSlam event of all time? That's what we're going to find out today here on SCW. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave in the comments in the comment section of what your favourite SummerSlam pay-per-view is of all time. And of course, like and share the video as well. Myself and 20 other YouTube channels will be collaborating in this video to give our vote. What is the greatest SummerSlam of all time? The link to every channel is in the description of this video. So make sure to go and support everybody. Go and click on the links, give them a subscribe, and check out their content. And I personally want to say a big thank you to every single channel that has contributed towards this video, helping to make it possible. Honestly, really am grateful. But before we get started here today, first off, we need to go through the rules. Firstly, all wrestling YouTube channels have been drawn at random. I will introduce who drew numbers 1 and 2. That channel will share their opinion on what is the greatest SummerSlam event of all time. This will continue until all wrestling YouTube channels have given their opinion on what is the greatest SummerSlam event of all time. YouTube channels with more than one person are voting individually. For example, 2 people from the same channel with the same answer equals 2 votes. Different answers from each member of a YouTube channel gives 1 vote to each SummerSlam event chosen. If you wish to know what my favourite SummerSlam event is of all time, I too am drawn at random and can appear in this video at any time, so you must stay tuned. I will keep you up to date with the votes and standings at regular intervals throughout the video. The winner will be the SummerSlam event with the most votes at the end. So that's the rules there for you. Remember, each person is giving their own individual opinion, so please respect people's choices in the comments below, and do not get upset if SummerSlam 1992 is the winner at the end, because that does mean that everyone did accept my bribe. What can I say? I'm patriotic. I want to see the UK come out on top. But without further ado, let's find out who drew number 1 for this video. Someone who's done multiple interviews on his channel with different wrestlers from multiple organizations, including the likes of Jordan Grace, Eric Young, JBL, and more. I'm talking about the one, the only, the Angle Podcast is number 1 here today on SCW.
What's up, fellow SCW fans? My name is Joey Carney, host of the Angle Podcast, and Steve asked me to be here today to discuss what I think is the best SummerSlam event. What year had the best SummerSlam pay-per-view? And for me, that's quite a simple answer because, well, SummerSlam is my favorite pay-per-view of the year, but this in particular, one I'm about to discuss, is my favorite pay-per-view of all time. And fans who are aware of SummerSlam kind of have an idea of what the best one is. Come on, guys. SummerSlam 2002, headlined by Rock versus Brock for the WWE Championship. It was the summer of Brock Lesnar, where he became the youngest WWE champion of all time, defeating The Rock, sending him off to Hollywood. That show started with Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio, that being Rey Mysterio's first ever appearance on a WWE pay-per-view. So many great matches in between there. We had an unsanctioned match between best friends become rivals, Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Shawn Michaels finally coming back after nearly, 4 years after back surgery, losing him in the Attitude Era, coming back in the Ruthless Aggression Era. So many great matches, like I said, in between all of those. We had superstars like Undertaker, Test, Rob Van Dam, Chris Jericho, RVD, Ric Flair, and so many more in this show. 2002, hands down, the best SummerSlam of all time. Thanks, Steve, for involving me again in this show. Always great content, always great stuff coming from Steve. All you SCW fans, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Have a good one, guys.
Big thank you to Joey Carney there from the Angle Podcast. Some very kind words at the end of his choice. Also, make sure to go subscribe to his channel also, along with everybody else that is featured in this video. His choice was 2002. Will it be the number 1 at the end? We'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, let's go on to entrant number 2. And he's back in the YouTube scene. It's great to have him back after such a lengthy spell away. With such series as the Wrestling Report, Attitude Era moments that went too far, and the good, the bad, and the ugly on your favorite wrestling weekly TV shows, it is none other than Rated R For Rasslin here on SCW.
What's going on, guys? My pick for the best SummerSlam of all time is SummerSlam
2000. Now, the reason I picked this, we had the awesome triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship, the WWE Championship between The Rock, Triple H, Kurt Angle. Doesn't get much better than that. We had a 2-out-of-1 falls match between Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. Obviously, when those two get together, they tear it down in the ring, and they did so in this pay-per-view. We had Kane versus The Undertaker. Always great to see them against each other. Even if the match isn't all that great, at least it's great to see them together and against each other in a match. Also, we had TLC, the first ever TLC. Christian, Edge, the Hardys, the Dudleys, in an awesome TLC match. You know how great those matches are in the big spots they pull off. Also, you had Hardcore Championship match. Steve Blackman, the Lethal Weapon, going against Shane McMahon. That's when Shane McMahon gets thrown off the big set by Steve Blackman after hitting him in the face with a kendo stick. So SummerSlam 2000 is the best SummerSlam of all time, the best era of all time. Hands down, nothing beats it.
Big thank you there to Rated R For Rasslin for you that time there with the choice of SummerSlam 2000 for you there. You're not going to see me for the next few entries. We're going to find out how the leaderboard is going to shape. Next time you see me, I'll give you the early standings. But in the meantime, let's get our next entrant on, shall we now? Someone who covers all of professional wrestling, UFC as well, and you can find him in a circle of debate because it is Circle of Debate. Ivan, what is the greatest SummerSlam event of all time?
This is the host of Devious What Ivan see here from Circle Debate Podcast. I want to go ahead and thank Steve for giving me the opportunity to go ahead and give my greatest SummerSlam event of all time. And that will be SummerSlam 1998, as we had a phenomenal card. We had a Ken Shamrock versus Owen Hart in the Lion's Den match. We also had The Rock versus Triple H in the ladder match for the Intercontinental title, which there was a historic for both of these athletes and making a name for themselves. And as well, the main event, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Undertaker, the Highway to Hell no disqualification match. This card, this event was fantastic and is one of the greatest SummerSlam pay-per-views for me of all time.
Hello everybody, Ella J of a Wrestling Gal podcast, here to share what I think is the greatest SummerSlam of all time, and it's gotta be SummerSlam 2000s, right? I mean, in the midst of the Attitude Era, of course, we had another classic TLC match between the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys. We also had a great triple threat for the WWE Championship. Of course, we had that insane moment with Steve Blackman and Shane McMahon, and so much more on this card. I feel like it really embodied the Attitude Era. It was the perfect essence and the perfect display of everything going on during that time, and of course with some phenomenal talent as well. So for me, it's gotta be SummerSlam 2000.
What is going on, everyone? I am Kyle Gagliardi from the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, and Steve once again has been generous enough to invite me onto one of these videos. This time we're talking about the greatest SummerSlam pay-per-view of all time, and I have to preface this with I started watching wrestling in 2011, so I have a little bit of a recency bias, but my favorite SummerSlam pay-per-view of all time has to be SummerSlam 2013, and it was really headlined by two fantastic matches. You had the Best versus the Beast, CM Punk taking on Brock Lesnar. That match absolutely delivered. And then, of course, in the main event, you had John Cena versus Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship, where Randy Orton inevitably cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase when Triple H turned on him after Daniel Bryan defeated John Cena. One of the more memorable moments in SummerSlam history, in my opinion. And you also had some interesting matches with Kane versus Bray Wyatt, Cody Rhodes versus Damian Sandow. A lot of good storylines going into the pay-per-view, and I thought as a whole, it delivered. So for me personally, the greatest SummerSlam pay-per-view of all time goes to SummerSlam 2013.
What's up, everybody? It's the hardest part of the ring, also known as Kyle, the host of the Apron Bump podcast, and I actually have recapped a couple of SummerSlams on my podcast. One recently I covered was SummerSlam 2002, and that is a SummerSlam that I think is a very popular option for the best SummerSlam of all time, and for good reason. I mean, the card is stacked from top to bottom. However, really kind of racked my brains to think what other SummerSlams would top that. The one that comes to mind, at least for me, is SummerSlam 2005. That's Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan, the infamous match, I suppose, but a crazy spectacle nonetheless. Of course, you have Dominic on a pole match between Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. JBL versus Batista in a street fight was really good. John Cena versus Chris Jericho for the WWE title. What else you got? You got Matt Hardy and Edge continuing their legendary rivalry. I think overall, because 2002 for me is a very work rate heavy show. Outside of Triple H and Shawn Michaels, which was fantastic. Everything else on the show is pretty much just, here's some wrestlers, let's make them wrestle. Not a great build up to 2002 SummerSlam. And I think 2005 had a bit of a better storyline foundation. I also watched this SummerSlam in a Hooters, so doesn't really mean anything, but it's a fun fact. Well, it's a fact. It's not really fun. Yeah, SummerSlam 2005 gets my vote as the best SummerSlam of all time. Just a fun time. Sether, the theme song. Sether?
Sefer, I believe it's Sefer. Fantastic stuff indeed there. Big thank you there to Apron Bump there, the hardest part of the ring there with his selection 2005 there for you. Big thank you as well there to OTM on the Mark Wrestling podcast, Kyle giving his selection there, and a great one with 2013 as well, one of my favourite ones in the last 10 years. Big thank you to Ella J of a Wrestling Gal podcast, and as well as that Ivan from Circle of Debate. So let's see the opening standings, shall we? And SummerSlam 2000 is currently in the lead with 2 votes. Of course, still plenty of time for the rest to catch up there. You can see votes so far for 1998, 2002, 2005, and 2013. So that's how the standings are looking so far. Will it be the same at the end? Well, there's only one way to find out. It's time to get our next selection of content creators up, starting with someone who has a show called Spoiler Warning. Give us all the inside scoops of what's going on in the pro wrestling world. Personally, for me, I like to say we're just being spoiled. It's the one and only Tom Colohue here on SCW.
Well, Steve, you're asking me about SummerSlam, and I've got to always go back to that same SummerSlam from many years ago when I first started watching SummerSlam 1998. I know there's been some tremendous years since. I know there's been some tremendous matches since. I know that Brock Lesnar bust Randy Orton open, and that certainly got some attention. I know that, well, Brock Lesnar become Mr. SummerSlam, but I know there was also Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels. God knows everyone remembers that, but for me, it's always my first. It was my very first pay-per-view right after I started watching SummerSlam 1998. It opened with Val Venus and D'Lo Brown. We had the Oddities versus Kai and Tai. We had Mankind, ostensibly and Kane versus the New Age Outlaws. That lasted about 2 minutes. Looking at the card, it's not great, but you also had Ken Shamrock versus Owen Hart in the Octagon match. Lion's Den, I believe they phrased it as. You had The Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. But for me, the one that always stands out to me is The Rock versus Triple H. For me, SummerSlam 1998 is the greatest SummerSlam of all time.
Hello everybody, this is Astrid from Love Wrestling CA and Women's Wrestling Talk. For my SummerSlam, I have to say SummerSlam 2015 is my favorite one. I definitely love seeing Seth Rollins and John Cena and Rollins with his white gear, which I will never forget. I knew I had to get the Funko Pop after I saw that gear. But yeah, and not only that, but seeing Team Bella versus Team PCB. I have loved people like Charlotte, Becky, and Paige, and seeing them on my screen is something I always enjoy. And seeing Jon Stewart getting involved and helping Seth Rollins in the end, which I feel like even though something you could kind of expect it, at the same time it shocked a lot of people, and it's something I won't forget anytime soon. So yes, being a Seth Rollins fan, this is definitely one of my favorite events that I won't forget. Definitely my favorite SummerSlam as well. And I also want to thank Steve for having me. And again, I love thinking back of the events that I watched and see what I enjoy the most out of all these events and which ones I haven't forgotten about, and it makes me think back of why I love wrestling so much.
What's up, SCW Steve? Thanks again for having me. It is your boy, the Final Boss Knock, representing West Coast PopCast. And you asked, what is my favorite SummerSlam? There's so many, man. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog. CM Punk versus John Cena. Daniel Bryan versus John Cena. So many SummerSlam moments, but I gotta tell you, the one that has a special place in my heart, the one that brings a tear to my eye, is when Mr. TNA, the phenomenal one, pins John Cena, leader of the C Nation, 1, 2, 3, in the middle of the ring. Don't tell Eric, but TNA took over that night. I was ecstatic. Great match, instant classic. This pay-per-view was also headlined by Sasha Banks and Charlotte, who carried Monday Night Raw with their pay-per-view match, as well as their feud throughout the summer, man. They were killing it. You have the Demon Finn Balor taking on Seth frickin' Rollins to crown the first ever Universal Champion. Shout out to Finn getting that first victory. Dean Ambrose, WWE Champion. Brock Lesnar taking on Randy Orton in a great match. Controversial ending, but love the pay-per-view, love the crowd, and of course, the one that takes it over the top for me is AJ Styles getting the victory, man. That was a true main event. That's my highlight of SummerSlam. Thanks for having me again on your show, on your channel. Shout out SCW Steve, man. 2016 SummerSlam, that's where it's at.
All right, Steve. Unlike Knox's favorite SummerSlam, my favorite SummerSlam does not contain any trash. Let's take a look at this card. My favorite SummerSlam is SummerSlam 89. This is a classic one to me because this was a fun SummerSlam, which is what SummerSlam is supposed to be. Tito Santana and the Rockers versus Rick Martel and the Fabulous Rougeaus. Nice pairing, and another nice one at that is going to be Demolition and King Duggan versus the Twin Towers and Andre the Giant. Fun pairings of different characters. I absolutely love this in the 80s and the early 90s. And then you got great mid-card stuff as well, too. Tag teams that are fantastic. The Brainbusters versus the Hart Foundations and the Honky Tonk Man taking on Dusty Rhodes, Daddy, if you will. And now, no more graphics when I talk about the main events here. I'm going to take you back to WWF Magazine, August 1989, as they previewed this. Two big ones. Look at this main event. Zeus and Macho Man taking on Brutus Beefcake and Hulk Hogan. What a build-up this was. The monster that was Zeus coming in. Sensational Sherry by the side of Macho Man Randy Savage. Great build for this matchup, this main event, and it was fun. It was something different. This is how you bring them in, and what a great feud this was. Ultimate Warrior versus Ravishing Rick Rude. Absolutely love this as well. This was Warriors peak right here, 1989 SummerSlam. And also thank you everyone out there for not going to see this movie right here. No Holds Barred did so bad at the box office that this is why we got this match at SummerSlam 89, because this right here was going to be your main event at this year's WrestleMania after this. So thank you for not seeing that. Thank you, Steve, for having us on as well. Again, my favorite SummerSlam 1989. Feel the heat.
Thank you, Steve, for this invite. I'm Ovi Muniz, and welcome to the Hard Hitting Wrestling Show. What is the greatest SummerSlam pay-per-view of all time? Well, my pick is no other than August of 2002. That's right, which is a heavy stat card, and each card had a feud and huge storylines between all of them. Kurt Angle defeating Rey Mysterio. This is Rey Mysterio's debut into the WWE, and found themselves clashing with one another because of a six-man tag team matchup that happened during the segments that led Angle and Mysterio to go at it. We also had Ric Flair defeating Chris Jericho. Edge defeated Eddie Guerrero. You had the Un-Americans, who were the tag team champions at the time, Christian and Lance Storm. They defeated Booker T and Goldust. RVD wins the Intercontinental Championship over Chris Benoit. The Undertaker defeated Test. Shawn Michaels defeated Triple H. And if those of you remember, Triple H turned his back on Shawn Michaels on the verge of trying to get DX back in order. That didn't happen, and that led to an unsanctioned street fight. And then the main event, Brock Lesnar, who was the King of the Ring tournament winner, was chasing after The Rock as he interfered almost every match until it got finalized for a match at SummerSlam. He becomes the new, undisputed heavyweight champion.
Some fantastic selections there. Big thank you to Over Muniz from the Hard Hitting Wrestling Show. Along with West Coast PopCast, we had Knox and Zax there. Astrid Pizarro from Women's Wrestling Talk, along with Love Wrestling CA. And of course, a big shout out as well to Tom Colohue there with their choices. Let's see what it's done to the standings at this point. We've got a three-way dance, or a triple threat, if you will, in the top spot. SummerSlams 1998, 2000, and 2002 have got 2 votes each. And a host of SummerSlams on 1 vote at the moment. 1989, a fun one there with the mention of Zeus as well. 2005, 2013, 2015, and 2016 all can still change. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to get our next selection of content creators off, starting with someone who's always got you covered on the live stream, whether it's WWE, AEW, and more. What time is it? It's Tino's Time Wrestling, here on SCW.
Thank you, Steve, for having me on this collab. I appreciate it. My greatest SummerSlam of all time has to be 2005. This SummerSlam had great superstars like Chris Masters, the Hurricane, Chris Benoit, Orlando Jordan, Edge, Matt Hardy, Kurt Angle, Eugene. We had so many great legends. Batista, JBL, John Cena, Randy Orton. I go on and on all day long. It's like a Hall of Fame class. But two of my favorite matches went down. We saw the custody battle, the biggest custody battle in WWE history, for Dominic Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio ended up coming out on top against Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero. And we also saw Hulk Hogan versus HBK, Shawn Michaels. And I will just always remember that SummerSlam is one of the greatest of all time. Thank you, Steve, for having me on this episode, and thank you, everybody, for watching.
The greatest SummerSlam event. That is quite the question. Thank you so much to Steve for asking me to be a part of this. I'm so honored. So, in my opinion, the greatest SummerSlam event ever was 2019. Honestly, you can't possibly look at that pay-per-view, go back and rewatch and say it was bad by any means. Every single match absolutely delivered, and not even just the match quality, even the stories going into SummerSlam 2019 were top notch. The show kicked off with Natalya vs Becky Lynch in a submission match for the Raw Women's title, and my goodness, that match was absolutely amazing. Goldberg squashed Dolph Ziggler because of course. Ricochet vs AJ Styles for the US title absolutely slapped. Ember Moon versus Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship was really fun. Shane McMahon versus Kevin Owens absolutely killed it. Elias as like the special guest referee was really fun. And all the interference in the end, I really enjoyed that match. And then Charlotte Flair versus Trish Stratus. Oh my goodness. Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton. The match itself was really good. The finish was kind of annoying in the count out, but we got that rematch and it was absolutely brilliant. These two have really fun chemistry. And then the proper debut of The Fiend against Finn Balor was absolutely spectacular. The match itself was questionable because it was kind of a squash, but the Fiend character will never be able to be recreated. It was absolutely incredible. And that main event, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins, they absolutely delivered. Seth Rollins made an end-step pay-per-view with booze, but he left getting cheered out of the building, which was absolutely amazing. That match was absolutely brilliant. That's why I'm choosing SummerSlam 2019 as the greatest SummerSlam event ever, because honestly, it was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for Steve once again. I really do appreciate it.
Hi, it's Liz
and Jerry
from the WrestleSlam podcast. And my favorite SummerSlam, few contenders, but my favorite was SummerSlam 2000. For the reason being, it was where we witnessed the first ever TLC match, which was an absolute spot fest.
My favorite SummerSlam was SummerSlam 92. Reason being, it was the second VHS tape I ever bought, and I watched it about 100 times that year, and I still watch it to this day every time I get a chance to watch it. Big entrances from Legion of Doom, The Undertaker, and the hearse, obviously with Bret and Bulldog at the end, finishing off one of the best matches of all time. So, you know, bring on Cardiff. We're going to it. Hopefully see you all there, but bring on SummerSlam first. Thanks, guys.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Kevin, or as you might know me, and if you don't know me, please check out my channel. I go by Bonafide Heat. I make wrestling content just like SCW Steve. But enough about that. This is about the best SummerSlam in history, the greatest SummerSlam. And in my mind, it is none other than SummerSlam 2002. I feel like this SummerSlam is going to be mentioned a lot in this video. I feel like it's nearly unanimous. I mean, top to bottom, this might be the best wrestling card ever put together. At least in a lot of people's opinion, and myself included, it's very much in the mix. This card had depth all across the board. I mean, you started off the show with Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio, two bona fide Hall of Famers, two legends, two top-tier talents in the history of this business, going at it in just a fantastic match. And then in the middle of that, you had Chris Jericho versus Ric Flair, just casually sprinkled in. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels' first wrestling match in over 4 years, and an all-time classic street fight, a banger of a story told. And then to cap it off, you had Brock Lesnar versus The Rock. And there was so much more in between. I mean, Eddie Guerrero was in action. Chris Benoit was in action against RVD. There was so much going on here. This is my absolute favorite SummerSlam and the best SummerSlam. I implore you to watch it if you haven't seen it. You know, like, if you're one of those people who's in the younger generation and you think, let's say you think SummerSlam 2013 is the best SummerSlam, which, don't get me wrong, that is a great SummerSlam. I implore you to at least give this a watch, though, if you haven't. And Steve, thank you as always for having me on. I know I went a little bit over the time that you slotted me for, but yeah, nevertheless, this has been great. Always love talking to you. Always got love for you. Peace.
Big shout out to Bonafide Heat there with his selection 2002, and for the very kind words at the end there. Also, I got a lot of time for you as well, my friend, so thank you very much for contributing on this video. Also, a big thank you as well to the WrestleSlam podcast. Yes, your check will be in the mail. Shout out to Eleanor Wrestling, also, as long with Tino's Time Wrestling. Fantastic choices all around. Let's see what it's done to the standings. It's still neck and neck at the top now. SummerSlam 2000 and 2002, both there with 3 votes each. In joint, if you want second or third place, however you want to look at it, on 2 votes each, we've got SummerSlam 1998 and 2005. And then after that, we've got a host of SummerSlams there with 1 vote. Still time for everything to change. Which SummerSlam will be voted the greatest of all time? There's only one way to find out. Let's get some more content creators giving their votes. Starting now with a duo who have been on the channel before, but you might not recognize them now because they had masks on before. They've unmasked now. Can't wait to introduce the faces of Wrestling with the Truth podcast here on SCW.
It's BC and Jay from Wrestling with the Truth, and we are here to contribute our greatest SummerSlams. So, Jay, do you want to take it away first with yours, so I don't steal it?
No, well, we didn't coordinate before, so we might have an issue. No, yeah, and thanks again, Steve. Appreciate the inclusion here, and we'll just jump right into it. I went a little bit back and forth on this. There was some memorable moments I remember, but for me, the best SummerSlam event has to be SummerSlam 2002. Only because I'm a giant Brock Lesnar fan from the early days. I like Brock now too. I even like new Cowboy Brock. But to me, the passing of the torch, if you will, that 2002 event between The Rock and correct me if I'm wrong, BC. I think The Rock quickly left after this. He was gone, right, for Hollywood for a while and stuff.
Yeah, was he shooting the Scorpion King or something?
I think that might have been it. Yeah. Anyway, this was sort of the literal. I'm giving this over to you and going to go away thing. And we all know what happened from the rest of 2002 to Mania. But regardless, I was a ginormous Brock mark. And this event was really signifying a big turn in the company at the time. I love that belt, too. As it's weirdly ironic that it's not on my shelf because I'm still waiting for the actual to find a deluxe version. But the card also had a few other matches like Kurt Angle, Mysterio. I think we had Flair in there, Guerrero, Edge, Benoit. So Shawn Michaels was in there, Triple H. So it was a stacked card too, and great time. It's vivid time for me from good memories.
All right, well, cool. All right, so for me, I'm going to stick to my old school roots. Of course, I'm Captain Old School. Got to get off my lawn. But, how can you beat the original, the first time? It's just like, anything else, your first date. Your first time making love. It's the first time we had SummerSlam. And what did we have? We had the Mega Powers against the Mega Bucks. Savage, Hogan versus DiBiase and Andre. You got Jesse Ventura in there as a guest referee. You have Elizabeth taking off the skirt and not so revealing swimsuit bottom underneath. Thanks to Savage.
For the time, it was risque.
For the time, though, we were like, "Oh my God, this is insane! We're seeing Elizabeth's legs." So yeah, that. But on top of that, you also, I think one of my favorite moments for a title change is the Ultimate Warrior beating Honky Tonk Man in the 31-second match where.
Was that them?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
That's the one. I just remember the crowd exploded when Warrior's music came on. Honky was saying, "I'll take on anyone," because he was supposed to fight Beefcake, who got hurt in the power sailing accident or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, and it just Warrior's music hits and the crowd goes banana, as Pat Patterson would say, and hits the ring, just demolishes Honky. And what a way for a champ, the longest reigning champ of all time, to go out. There you go,
And
31
then
seconds.
doesn't he just run right back out like
Oh, yeah.
almost immediately?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Just an awesome moment, especially as a youngster who was a big Warrior fan at the time. I mean, just that was just crazy. But yeah, so for me, I'm going to go with SummerSlam '88, the original.
Nice.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot, and good luck with the rest of your show.
Thanks, Dave.
This is Joe from the Bump Boys, and I am personally going to say my favorite SummerSlam is SummerSlam 2000. For me, I think overall it's just been a great match. You know, you do have a moment where it's a nice intergender match. You have Chyna and Eddie versus, Val and Trish. Chyna becomes the Intercontinental Champion. That's pretty cool. Then you have by far one of my favorite hardcore matches. One of my all-time favorites, Steve Blackman versus Shane McMahon, where you have Shane falling from the scaffold in a beautiful, beautiful visual. Iconic. How can you forget about, the tables, ladders, chairs match, Dudley's, Hardy's, Edge and Christian's. Iconic. You can't say anything bad about that match. It's amazing. And then, you wrap it off with my favorite growing up was The Rock. The Rock defeating Triple H and Kurt Angle in the main event to still hold the WWE title. Can't get any better than that.
So it's now time to give my vote then, which is the greatest SummerSlam event of all time. To be honest, it's quite hard, this one, because there's so many great ones out there. And despite me being so patriotic with SummerSlam 1992, the Bulldog and Bret Hart in that fantastic main event, the show that arguably made me a full-time wrestling fan, which is probably why I'm here today. At the same time, I look at it and say, I can't vote for a show that's got nails in it. It just wouldn't be right, would it? SummerSlam 2000 for me is a top one. I do love 2006 as well, 1998, the Highway to Hell, but my answer has to be SummerSlam 2002. As a few have elaborated already in this video, Brock Lesnar versus The Rock, was such a monumental main event to get such a brand new start, such an early stage in his WWE career, just to go and see what Brock has done since. Triple H and HBK starting their rivalry off. Of course, we never thought we'd see Shawn Michaels in a wrestling ring again. How spoiled we were to get him for another 8 years after returning at this show. One of the greatest openers of all time with Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle. We mentioned as well the likes of RVD versus Chris Benoit, Edge versus Eddie Guerrero. There's so many great matches on this show. It feels like one of the most complete shows in WWE history. From start to finish, this show just absolutely flies by, and it seems to be all killer, no filler. So for me personally, SummerSlam 2002 takes the vote as the greatest SummerSlam of all time.
Hello, it's DanWilliamsUK here. And I don't do football content, but I do love pro wrestling. I am trained to be a pro wrestler. And SCW Steve has kindly asked me, what is the best SummerSlam pay-per-view in all time? And for me, it has got to be SummerSlam 2017. Two matches stand out in my opinion. One is a tag team match with Cesaro and the Sheamus versus Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. What a match. The bar was on fire that summer. Producing bangers. The tag team division was just on fire that summer. And who can forget that main event? 4 beefy men trying to kill each other. That match, I still remember most of the match 5 years on. That's how good the match is. You had the really good rivalry with Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman through the summer. Same with Joe and Brock. And they all just culminated in a beautiful car crash of a world title match. That match defined heavyweight championship.
Big thank you to DanWilliamsUK there, of course. Say now he's got a football/soccer channel now for you, depending where you are in the world. But of course, he still has his takes on pro wrestling. I have to agree, that's one of the best fatal 4-ways of all time, by the way. Also, big shout out to Joe from the Bump Boys, also there with SummerSlam 2000, and of course, Wrestling with the Truth, also there with SummerSlam 1988. Of course, it's the original. It's what actually started the legacy of what we've got and why we have a video here today. And of course, a couple of shouts for 2002. So let's see what it's done to the standings at this point. And finally, we have a leader in this video now. SummerSlam 2002 with 5 votes. We've got 2000 in second place with 4 votes. Then, of course, in joint third place, we've got 1998 and 2005. And then a host of SummerSlams there for you with 1 vote each. 3 YouTube channels left to go now here on SCW. What is going to be the greatest SummerSlam event of all time? It all still can change. We have got Justin Baird from Juggernaut 097, as well as Barry from the NWC Show Non-Stop Wrestling Chat. But to kick things off, we've got someone who's been a regular on these videos up to now, 1/3 of a fantastic trio. We have Cinco from Know the Ropes Podcast, KTR, here on SCW.
What's the word, y'all? This is Senko from the Rose Podcast, and the best SummerSlam, in my opinion, has to be SummerSlam 2015. And that was the SummerSlam when The Undertaker defeated Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins defeated John Cena, winning both the United States title and the world title at the same time as well, and also a multitude of matches, but those are my top 2 favorite matches of that SummerSlam. And so SummerSlam 2015, best SummerSlam, live and direct in Brooklyn.
How is it going, everybody? This is Justin Baird from the Juggernaut 097 channel, and I am very happy to be a part of this collaboration with SCW Wrestling. And Steve asked the question, what is my favorite SummerSlam of all times? Now, there have been many great SummerSlams over the years. Most of them haven't been recent, but the older SummerSlams are better. But the one that really sticks out in my mind for being the favorite SummerSlam has to be the 2002 SummerSlam. With the main event, you had The Rock going up against Brock Lesnar, and even the whole undercard on the show. I mean, this show was so easy to sit through, and throughout the year of 2002, they were trying to make these really good, try to bring back really good Attitude Era things. And this right here, this was really good stuff, because I missed out on the Attitude Era. I started watching wrestling during here in 2002. So this show is definitely holds a special place in my heart, and this was the first ever pay-per-view I ordered. So that's another reason why SummerSlam 2002 is my favorite. And like I said, the undercard on this show, you had Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio. You had Edge and Guerrero. You had Rob Van Dam and Chris Benoit. And you had that great match between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. The great feud that they had over the years. This really kicked it off right here. And WWE during this time, it was very transitional. Trying to see what worked, and trying to build new stars like Brock Lesnar here. Him doing that. In that short span, him winning the WWE Championship in the short time he was in WWE. So yeah, SummerSlam 2 is definitely my favorite SummerSlam. So like I said, I just want to thank Steve for bringing me on here. I can't wait to see what everybody else has for their favorite SummerSlam, but I appreciate you bringing me on, Steve.
Thanks for asking me to take part in this video, Steve. It's always a pleasure to be on your channel. I don't think it's going to be a surprise for anybody what SummerSlam I'm going to pick, but it's SummerSlam 2002. A bunch of fantastic matches on it. I've got the list here, so we've got Brock Lesnar, The Rock. Brock kind of starting these... 2002 was a great run for him as well, but starting that kind of build to the Brock that we know him now. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, that unforgettable unsanctioned match. Rob Van Dam versus Chris Benoit. You've got Edge versus Eddie Guerrero, Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio, and a bunch of others that just made this pay-per-view, for me, one of the better SummerSlams. Now, there is a bunch of others in there that I do like, but this is probably my favourite one. That's why I'm picking SummerSlam 2002. It's the greatest of all time.
Big thank you there to the NWC Show, Justin Baird from Juggernaut 097 and Cinco from Know the Ropes Podcast. And we can see there as a clear winner, the greatest SummerSlam event of all time is SummerSlam 2002 with 7 votes. In second place was SummerSlam 2000 with 4 votes. On joint third place, we've got 3 SummerSlams, 1998, The Highway to Hell, 2005 and 2015. And then, of course, we've got a lot of SummerSlams on one vote. We've got the original of 1988, 1989, 1992, the only SummerSlam in the United Kingdom. We've got 2013, 2016, 2017, and 2019. So have we got it right? Now it's your turn to let us know in the comments below, what is the greatest SummerSlam of all time? I cannot wait to interact with you. Big thank you as well to every channel that has got involved, that has collaborated to make this video possible. The link to every channel is in the description of this video, so make sure to click those links, go and support those channels and give them a subscribe and check out a video of theirs. If you've enjoyed this video here on SCW, then please like it, share with a friend as well, subscribe to SCW, hit the bell as well, set the notifications to all, each and every time a video is released. And it's a good idea to do so as well, as we are on the road to SummerSlam. More videos will be dropping with SummerSlam themed in the meantime, so make sure not to miss out on any of those. In the meantime, why don't check out some of the videos on the side of your screen right now. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care and have a great day.